You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome, everyone, to the next adventure into reality. I am once again joined by the infamous Kathy Ma. And today we are going to be having a really, really incredible session. We are going to be continuing our story about tales into being a psychic, what it takes to become a healer, and all the different tools and techniques. And then in the second hour, we are going to open up to the callers to come in. So that's the second hour, not the first hour. Only the second hour will be taking in calls. I want to start off by reminding everyone that Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com is a listener-supported station. And since every month they do this donation drive to support the station by its listeners, there is a special process going on. Any $50 donation received during this live show will get a silver rush, which if you include your name on your donation, you will get a 1-ounce silver bar. Anyone that donates a $75 during the time of the show will get a baseball cap. As long as you include your name, you will get a Revolution Radio baseball cap in your donation process. So everyone, please come together and give the station some love and support. Drop on by the site support button. And this is important to understand. This is listener supported. This is not the giant commercial radio. This is independent radio, independent thinkers, and 72 hosts throughout stations and affiliates that have come together for the single purpose of bringing some form of truth and semblance and order to this world. So, Kathy, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
This is our second inaugural show.
It certainly is. We've always got such interesting stories.
Yes, we do. And last week there was a big response about the stories that both you and I were telling. So I wanna ask, for you, what was it like, adjusting in radio versus TV for you? Because you spent a lot of time doing that too.
Yes, I tell you, it's a really big difference. One wouldn't think so, but it really is. I have to be quite honest, I really prefer radio, mainly because, you don't have to keep worrying about looking at the camera. But being on telly was very interesting. I have to say I much preferred live TV to pre-taped because, you never know what they cut out in their editing. So sometimes what you said and what it comes across that you said can be two different things, which really makes a huge bit of difference when you're talking about big topics. But I would say that the radio experience is much more interesting because you have the freedom to think, you can pause, you don't have to worry about where your attention is in terms of visual, and you're not having to look at other people's reactions and then process that while you're still talking. So it's very much freely talking about your ideas and your thoughts and your visions without interruption, which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what was it like do you remember your first radio experience?
Oh, yeah, I do. I mean, I was very nervous because, it seemed so intimidating. And I was on RTHK, so it's like a government public-y kind of radio station. It's very, very big. And I was during the lunch hour kind of time, so it's a very popular time. So you're sort of thinking, oh no, a lot of pressure, no little beginner, downtime, sort of time to, practice what you're saying. And with my accent as well, I have to keep remembering to talk slower. But within, I'd say 5 minutes, it's just, I don't know, it's like a duck, take to it like a duck to water.
Exactly.
And the only thing you really have to remind yourself is you are talking to hundreds of thousands of people, so,
Yeah, you keep your mouth clean and you don't have a potty mouth and you keep going.
Don't give away too much personal secrets.
Exactly. It's interesting. My first radio experience was on another radio station. I don't even remember the name of it anymore. And I was with another lady that's on the station also, Tracy, and she does Turtle Island News, which is a really, really cool show. And she interviewed me Halloween night, and we just talked about lightning storms, and it was 2 hours of Halloween story type stuff.
Wow. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, for those that know me, I was really big into the Halloween scene. You know, when I was younger, I professionally did haunted houses and just did some really, really cool stuff with it. Traveled around the country, and you know, to be able to set that off, that energy, it was really just quite fun. And then the very next day, I did another show with another person the next day, and then the next thing I know, I have my own radio show. And within a month of that, I was also here on Revolution Radio with a show running 4 days a week.
Wow, 4 days a week.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 10 a.m. to 12 noon is where it started.
Wow, you really did take it to it like a duck to water.
Yeah, just exactly. A duck landed in the water, went quack, quack.
Yeah, I'm home. Oh, wow. Lightning must have been quite an interesting topic.
Oh, it was, because in Ohio you have all the Great Lakes that are right there, but in Classic you have Lake Erie, which is very flat terrain that's all around it, so the wind can come up on it in no resistance whatsoever, and the lake could be, let's say, 80 degrees or 78 degrees, which is a common temperature for that lake, and all of a sudden that moisture will feed thunderstorms that can come up within 6 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
And if you're out on the lake, you can watch them, and all of a sudden the sky gets very heavy, you smell ozone, and you know the lightning is coming. And I used to go, age 14, 15, 16, all the way into my 20s, I'd go out and hunt thunderstorms waiting for them to come on the lake, because you could spot a twister that would be going over in the lake, which we called a water spout.
You're very adventurous. Did you ever find... I forget what they name when the lightning hits sand or dirt, and then they have that thing underneath that all melts and
that makes glass. Yes, I've seen that many, many times on the beaches throughout northern Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah,
that would have been amazing.
And that's one of those sacred things that many Native American cultures all throughout the Great Lakes would go and find that lightning glass, and it become part of their sacred objects.
Oh, do they use it for healing as well? Or?
Oh yeah, that's the lightning medicine. That's where you're talking about what's called the thunder beings, where in every element, air, earth, fire, and water, there are also sub-elements to those, and those are how they exchange energies between one world and the other. And the lightning is the exchange of that energy. And that exchange of energy, when we see it here, manifested here, we understand that it's a process of the infinite creational energy coming through the programming of water.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no wonder they're after it. I've only ever seen it on telly. I've never seen it live. I mean, up close.
Oh, I've been in thunder and lightning storms where trees have come down all around me, so lightning comes in 25s or 30s.
So disregard the do not stand near a tree when there is thunder and lightning.
Well, you want to be inside during that process, yes.
I guess when you're 14, 15, it's just exciting.
Oh yeah, we'd run around in the thunder and the lightning storms until you didn't want to get wet anymore. And then when it got really black, and I mean black, you're like, you'd feel the low pressure coming in and you'd be like, I'm going inside.
Before a cup of tea.
Exactly.
Not because I'm scared, but, it's tea time.
Exactly. It's tea time. Let's have tea and watch the storm. So many people tell me that when the thunder and lightning storms come in, it recharges them.
I feel that energy as well, though. You feel very revitalized. And whether it's just because, of the pressure when it comes and that crisp, what's it called, almost cool air, it's like a giant breeze in your face. That's what I used to account that it was about. But really, there was something else going on that, on some energetic level, you know, your crown chakra is just vibrating. You can really feel it. If it wasn't so dangerous to go out and stand outside in some of it, you would.
So during my adventuresome years of hunting thunderstorms, and I became very, very close to the Native American path, I began hunting thunderstorms with a group of drummers, and we would go out to the end of the big pier and watch the 20-foot waves come in, the 50-foot waves come in sometimes, and yes, they were blowing that hard because the lake was that shallow. And the thunder would come in, and you'd have maybe 10, 12 people that were drumming, and it would just, the drums would talk to you. And that's where I became very connected to the winds as an element, to the thunder as it's part of the voice of the winds. And it really helped expand my greater understandings of the all of nature interacting through the thunder beings. And that led to doing a special ceremony, so where my inner sense would tell me a thunderstorm is coming, or if the land is asking for someone to assist it to create thunder, I'll create a fire just before a storm comes, and then I'll be putting my prayers and blessings in it so that the thunder beings can come in and begin to share our energy with us. And I've had so many incredible experiences. One of the things I'd like to share for people is this process of sensing a thunderstorm coming and then creating your own little sacred fire to connect to the voice of the winds so that the thunderous crack and exchange of energy can also be expressed to you in that unity moment of you sharing your frequencies with it.
Oh. I never even thought about having a ceremonial fire as well with it.
Mm-hmm. Consciousness creates the rain. The rain is part of your consciousness when you're interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many esoteric ways of observing rain and what it does. And you take the negative concepts out, of esoterica, and you simply apply the all of nature to your esoteric expressions. Thunder is one of those common things that we have. Something else that was special in Ohio because of the Great Lakes is we could literally have a full-blown blizzard come down and thunderstorm with rain at the same time and lightning.
It's not sounding like a lot of fun to live there.
It was quite, because you get so many unique climate changes and potentials for climate change. Now, a full-blown thunderstorm with rain and lightning in winter is rare. It happens maybe only 5 or every 7 winters, and it only happens by the lake. And sometimes when it's a really big event, it'll go 20, 30 miles south, and you'll have what's called a lake effect snow band, where the snowflakes will come down, and it's like, imagine your hand as wide open as it can be, and that's how big these lake effect snowflakes are.
Oh, wow.
And I have dozens of pictures of these things just floating down out of the air, and it is such an amazing experience to feel that and see that and to catch one into your hand.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be pretty amazing.
What was your first experience with snow?
It was in Australia. We were going on a ski trip with my mum's side of the family, and we were very excited. It's the first time we were going to see snow, and we got up there, and I remember the awe of seeing snowflakes come down. And then realizing I did not have the right shoes because my toes are very wet. What? And then very cold. But it was absolutely amazing to visualize for real, not just in your head. And in those days, there was no internet and all this. All you really had pictures in books or what was on telly, and that doesn't capture that dimension of the flakes coming down. And that was pretty amazing. Obviously, the skiing was not that successful, but what you call it, the snow angel stuff was good. The tobogganing was good. But the sense of feeling like your whole body and your soul being cleansed was definitely present. And I was quite young then, so I didn't really understand all that. But I remember the feeling refreshed and feeling clean, even though I was pretty wet, really.
So there are a lot of people out there that have never seen snow. Maybe they've seen it on TV, but they've never actually been in snow.
Mm.
And for anyone that is out there, I really encourage you to think about a winter vacation to go experience snow.
Mm.
And those people that come from very hot areas like Hong Kong, they have a tough time adjusting to the cold. Well, bring warm clothes.
Yeah, thermal underwear.
And then there are people that, grew up in the North countries in Norway where they've experienced the extremes of cold.
Mm. Yes.
Okay? And they've learned a different way to adapt and process through it. Everybody's skin suit has their right running temperature. Okay? And some people like it cold, some people like it hot, some people like it right in between. It's really important to know if you live in an area and you really don't like the cold, why are you there? Got to ask yourself. I can't tell you how many people, I don't want to be here, it's too cold. I'm like, why are you there then?
Mm.
What is holding you in place? And that is that process of, once again, looking at the self.
Mm. And creating alternatives if your existing is really not to your liking.
Exactly, which is the nature of the sessions that both you and I do privately.
Mm. Yes. Yes, exploring your options. How do you create something else? Whether it's a giant change or a small change. If you're really not happy with your situation, you need to start exploring what your options are.
And another way to look at it is, well, if I'm not that connected to this area and the cold is affecting me, where are the places of power where I can go and connect to them and begin to exchange some of this energy that I may be feeling during the times of extreme cold?
Mm.
Okay? That's a way of getting a deeper inner earth connection by nurturing yourself, by giving yourself the time to begin to experience the unity of that particular empowered place, whether it be hot or cold, whether it be volcano or hurricane-prone area.
Yes, hurricane-prone area. New things I'm learning about. In Hong Kong we have typhoons, which are pretty strong, but I don't think it's in any way as strong as the hurricanes you have here.
No. It's a very, very different scale.
Yeah. Just watching some of it on TV here is quite amazing because being overseas, we do get coverage of what happens here, but not to the same degree and with as much detail. You're like, wow.
Yep.
It's just devastating, some of it.
And then people rebuild and rebuild and rebuild right on the top of the same place because either they're empowered by that area or they're ancestrally linked to that area.
Mm.
They're not going to move. Nothing's going to destroy them. They're not going to give up on their dream.
Well, in the Philippines, it's always amazed me because it's such a hugely religious country. So you know that everyone there is praying every day, and I would say 80% of the population is like that. Yet this is one country that is so ravaged by storms and typhoons. I mean, it's nothing for them to have their houses flooded up to their waist all the time. And same thing, they will rebuild on the same spot. I mean, granted, the majority of them live in great poverty, so they can't really afford to move anywhere else. But it's always made me wonder, like, how does that work? Of all the countries, this is one country you would expect to be in some way slightly protected or have see some alleviation of what's going on with them, yet every year that country gets absolutely hounded by that kind of weather conditions.
Well, every time the monsoons come in, all throughout India, the same process happens, and that is ancestral. They have been doing it for so long that it's ingrained into their DNA when they're born into that area.
I see. Well, that's an excellent way to look at it.
Okay.
I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, they're born with it. They knew that frequency came in through their mother and father. and their mother and father before them, and the mother and father, the 7 previous generations of that land, have saying that, your chances of putting together a home in abject squalor and all that is because you're living off the land, and if you survive, that's because the land is protecting you. And you also discover during those storms, not many people die.
Yeah.
Compared here in the United States, where you got these guys that are driving into the rushing water flows because they think their big truck can go through, and the next thing you know, they're dead. 29 of them in the last storm in South Carolina.
Well, they're just better swimmers in Philippines. No, I know what you mean. They certainly cope better, I suppose. Whereas here people are unprepared, I guess, because it not necessarily hits them all the time. Would that be right?
Yes.
Yeah, what happened up in South Carolina was so tough. It's so tough to watch on telly.
Yeah, but again, what you see on the TV is fear also.
Yeah,
that's the propaganda that's applied behind it, because they knew this storm was coming. They did the evacuations, and yes, the disaster is horrible, but 24-hour news of giving every weatherman's fart an objective of saying the dams are going to break is going to create an even stronger sense of fear.
Yeah, I guess that is true. I mean, we did know it was coming. I mean, I was even sort of talking to my husband about, should we get some sandbags? So I guess you do have notice it's coming. You are semi-prepared. It's how you cope with it as well, isn't it?
Exactly. It's how you cope. And then how you cope as a spiritual person dealing with disaster that may be around you. Just last week, I had a lady that lost a significant portion of her investment because of the South Carolina, the issues with the storms that are there. And I reminded her, that those lands do go through that ancestral cleansing and washing. And she says, but this is the biblical flood. That's what the news said. And I go, that's what the news is imprinting into you. When the water's clear, you'll go back on your land and you'll see a great change on the land. But what you intended to build there and what was washed away, it's okay. You can start over, or you can begin to listen to the land and do something different with it. Retasking the land for a whole new purpose. Having wetlands was important because those were the barriers between the storms. And they've taken the wetlands away. And not in all scenarios. And, they have a thing called the Great Abysmal Swamp. And that's known as basically the largest swamp in the world. And that's, between, New York and Florida. The Great Abysmal Swamp. Look it up. And it was the great barrier between the hurricanes. And as more and more of the swamp has been drained and roads have been built through it and towns have come in, et cetera, and the inaccessible made accessible, the natural flow and patterns of the water and the lands has changed. And people's homes are now in the way.
Oh, okay. I had not heard of that before.
Yeah. And this is where people who want to be conscious, active manifestors can go and build cloud busters. And instead of being cloud busters, it's a hurricane redirector.
That's a good idea.
A few dozen on your property that's properly empowered and gone through ceremonial rituals can protect huge square miles radius of your property. You just have to learn how to use the machines that they are.
Well, it sounds like it's something that you really must have if you're on property as well, isn't it?
Again, it's one of those conscious application of the sacred concepts. Do I want to engage in this? Not just as a hobby, but as something I do to make life sacred around me, to guarantee that that's what shares my environment stays in its process of growth and evolution, and not in entropy. All right, that is our break. We'll be back in about 3 minutes, everyone. Just a reminder, we are not taking calls to the top of the second hour, so we'll be back in just a minute.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message. Listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back, everyone, to our next segment as Kathy and I are going to be continuing our conversation that's going to be filling you full of different things to add to your toolbox of healing before we open up calls in the second hour. So in about a half hour from now, we'll be opening up the calls. So everyone, hold on to your calls. So Kathy, we were talking about empowering your place, understanding the weather that's around you, and then began talking about ancestral connections that we have to the land. And there are rhythms and patterns around everyone, and both you and I in our private sessions see these patterns all the time. What are some of the generic patterns you've been seeing come up in a lot of your sessions?
I would say a lot of confusion about where they're from, what is the life goal, what is the purpose, things like this, which I find quite interesting because in many ways it is very important to know these things, yet at the same time you can't spend too much time thinking about all that and how it will hinder you in your future. Like if you really don't have all that information, you can still have a very vibrant future without knowing all that. It seems to me a lot of people are very caught up in needing to know a lot of things, whether it's this life, past life, generations back, thousands of years back. And although it is helpful to know all this, sometimes your place in life is more about the now and focusing on the now so that you can see the future as opposed to looking back to understand or predict the future. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, because in the now, it's not about getting an answer to the question. It's existing in the now. And this is why information can rapidly alter people into deep polarity and sometimes make them zealots. Literally, the information themselves. They're not a zealot in deep polarity other than the next piece of instant gratification information.
Yes, that's very true. And another thing that's, the last few years I've come across, which I hadn't really before, was a lot of people are very interested in about whether or not they are adopted and who are their adoptive parents and that all that background that comes with it. And I don't know why this sudden
I'll tell you why.
interest.
I'll tell you. I have had the same thing, and I've come to a big conclusion that in the mid-'80s, like 82 to 84, there was a big, humongous change in the rules for adoptions here in the United States.
Oh.
It was made a lot more secret, and it was, the Planned Parenthood began to be fun, and the Christian organizations that were very anti-abortion hadn't been mobilized by the Reagan supporters or the Republican supporters here yet in the way that they are now. And laws were passed, along with, the laws that were passed in the 60s that made that process legal to have abortions. And then there was a thing to stop the abortions and a big funding for many people to go ahead and have their children, as well as bringing in children from other countries.
Oh, okay.
Like if you were both American citizens and you were adopting a child from, let's say, South Africa, China, or wherever else, it was very easy to do that. Very, very easy.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense then.
So that is a whole generation's question.
Yeah. I mean, I guess also the understanding of genetics and what do they call it? Environment versus genetic has been big issues over the last decade, I suppose.
Right. People say, why am I in that cold area? Because you were born there. Well, what if you weren't born there and it's just being imprinted upon you? And the very first time you get to Hawaii or some Florida for your first hot, sweaty weather, knowing I could never have to experience the cold again.
What joy!
Exactly. Or the vice versa, the person that's only lived on the island, only known island life, and then sees the big city for the first time. And goes, I am never going back to that little island.
Yeah, I can imagine the excitement and the awe for something like that. Just like, wow. Like a kid in a candy shop, isn't it?
Exactly, a kid in a candy shop, and we have to protect those children.
Mm.
You know, so many children grow up on the tit of instant gratification. Okay? That's a process. You know, I remember as a kid, you had to earn your fun. It didn't come through the form of a bling bling in a video game.
No? Yes, I remember that. The most exciting things was you get to bang on a pot.
Exactly, or you danced and made your own process up.
Yes, we had very vivid imaginations in that, eh?
Exactly, and back in the 1800s, it was I'll call a barrel ring and a stick.
And you were lucky if you had that ring.
You're lucky if you had that ring because they would reuse all those rings.
That's right. Just stash it away under your bed. So, Andrew, one thing I think that a lot of people are interested in is, when was the first time you kind of discovered that you could read records? I mean, a lot of people may not know your story. Were you at a young age or an older age? I mean, what was that first time where you're like, wow?
9 years old at a baseball game in Cleveland Stadium, and was bottom of the ninth inning, and was a tied score, and our team hit a home run, and everyone cheered. Just everyone cheered. Everyone in the audience, outside, everyone that was experiencing the game through the TV, all had this cheering unity moment, and all of a sudden, that's how my world changed. Where I wasn't. I don't want to use the word innocent because I still had a form of innocence as I was heightening my awareness of everyone's contract, because everything was presented to me as a spiritual contract. This has happened here. This has happened here. The fan in the row 92C, which was a quarter mile away from me, was a contract to be there at that moment, as well as the woman right next to him who may have been pregnant with that baby was also contracted to be there. So there wasn't a losing of innocence as much as there was a gaining of a greater innocence of what was going on, and to reach the peak where each individual person's story had to have individual time moments in me. So everyone's story and all of their records, past, present, and future, created a pattern inside of me. And this is where I say I became the 900-year-old kid. I had an awareness of like a 900-year-old person. You know, that's the only way I can explain it in English. As everyone that was around me, you know, and then as the game ended, and you know, I couldn't tell my dad or my brother or anyone that was there what the hell was going on. It was just, you know, I was like, wow, everything. I'm amazed at everything. Going out and seeing a fire hydrant and seeing every time that fire hydrant was used to put out a fire, and some of those fire hydrants have been replaced. And Cleveland is one of the older cities in the United States. They had fire hydrants back in the 1880s. So some of those fire hydrants had put out thousands and thousands of fires.
Wow, that's an amazing amount of info to be subjected to at 9.
Everything showed me its age, its scale in which it was working. I remember getting into my dad's red Rabbit, a Volkswagen Rabbit, and we were driving out of the city, and you know, after the games it would be really busy, and you'd stop and people be honking, and I would see just people in this long repetitive process. You know, everything meant something. Where I looked my eyes up to the sky, the stars began to show me a different scale of understanding. The last time that their people had actually visited here in physical flesh. All of those things at 9. And for about 2 weeks, I was very withdrawn. And this is where I had what I call teacher spirits from both the hollow earth and the astral world come and remind me that as if I cannot let the information change me. That was the key. That I had to keep a sacred neutral perspective, that I had to keep a deeper understanding of what was making me the sovereign self there. And in that self-reliance, I was able to find the passion to become the sacred neutral observer and find my vision within inside all of the visions that I was having about what this could mold me to be when I'm in my 40s, 50s, or 60s.
Wow, I mean, it just seems so overwhelming. I mean, at any age, let alone such a young age. What age were you, or was it soon after that you talked to your parents about it, or not talk to them about it?
Oh, I had been challenging them psychically since I was a little kid. And they were very Greek Orthodox, so they didn't really want to see it. They didn't want to experience it. So by the time I had my experience in the game, at the baseball game, I was still testing them to see if they'd believe it here or there, but they didn't ultimately. And I knew that even if they did believe it, I would be in big trouble because they just didn't get it. They just didn't get the scale in which I was seeing and understanding that this stuff people have in their wallet is a curse, money, and then having to understand all the money I had earned as a little kid and taught that money was good.
Yeah. I guess in a way maybe it's a good thing that, or a lucky thing for you at that age, that they didn't really understand or believe you.
Right. Everything has happened for a spiritual contract, and that's what I began to understand by age 13 and 14, because by 15 I had asked every single question I wanted of the Akashic record, and I said, all right, I'm done, I'm ready to leave. And the answer is you can't leave until everyone else is ready to leave. It's called unity, and the only way unity happens when everyone agrees. Until that time, all portions of everyone's soul shard that's part of this karmic resolution as a bigger scale contractual understanding is here.
There is no leaving.
Well, if you can leave, you just won't remember what you did here.
Yeah.
It's a reverse of the birthing order. The greater scale, you get to go back and be your higher self being, but you will remember nothing of the lessons that you had here. And you will have a piece of your soul shard here nagging for you to come back and resolve these things.
Right.
So you could take a vacation from Earth, but you're still coming back to the ground.
Yeah. And you would have already made this contract and known, your soul would have known before you came anyway, isn't
right.
it?
And it was just a matter of me, the kid, understanding that.
Yeah.
I want my spaceship. I can't tell you how many times I demanded my spaceship. I didn't get it.
Come get me now.
Exactly.
I'm
Come
pressing
get
the button.
me now.
Why are you not responding? Oh. Wow, that's quite an amazing thing to go to at such a young age. Did you find that once you did understand it all, that you and could sort of comprehend things, did it make you actually feel good because you finally understood what this was all about, or was it just more daunting?
It was more daunting until I began to understand the layers that were coming to me. Because each layer was to help me understand there was a bigger layer and a bigger layer and a bigger layer, and I would only understand certain bigger layers until I had certain experiences, like having my first girlfriend or getting my driver's license. There were certain things I simply couldn't understand until I was a driver. I was the one behind the wheel in the responsibility of driving in the karmic interaction that is our roads.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, or paying my first taxes. Right. So I understood things, but I hadn't experienced them, the fullness of the understanding, until I had gone through certain things. So by the time I reached my 20s, I look back at that self that said I asked every single question that I could possibly ask, and the answer was I did, for that age, at that time, in that moment. And subsequently, there are new questions that come up because we are an ever-evolving species, and a species that has huge volumes of people that we don't even realize are a part of our sentient race. 7,300,000,000 human beings, as 7,300,000,000. That's what they say is on our world right now. I say that I contest and say that there are 50 billion beings living on this world. So there's 43 billion beings on our world that are just as sentient as us and have the same amount of rights, inalienable rights that we do. Okay, that's what I also learned growing up, compared to the high school that I taught, that only human beings are the only smart being on the world because we have thumbs and made computers.
Oh, it's not true?
Not true. Ingraining that into myself, to not accept the common answer that puts people into rational impotence. Okay, we can rationalize anything and take away our power.
I like that phrase, rational impotence. That's good.
Yeah. People fall into that process all the time. They talk themselves into no power. I found myself talking myself into power. And every time I found myself using the programming I may have learned from my mother or father, or from, ingrained from some friend that took from somewhere else, no, I do not have to have these innate sets of choices that lead me down to a path of hierarchical order where nothing is ever resolved.
You have choices.
Right. True choices as the unlimited being. In the passion, in the spontaneity, in the form of self-reliance, using the wisdom to help me guide myself through my own inner reflection so I can create a future intent that even helps me greater. Think about that. How does one connect to future intent?
Yeah, it's a very deep question.
That's called your spiritual calendar. You are a multidimensional, multifunctional being of light, not limited to one frame of time. Your calendar can be your spiritual journal that teaches you how the great process of future selves work. Your schedule, that's where you begin to envision who you might be in 3 months from now, 6 months from now. 6 months from now, I've done I will schedule 5 ceremonies, but actually I've done 10 or 12. Then I have to go and fill in my calendar. Maybe I didn't do 12, maybe I only did 5, and I have to be more honest with myself. That is how you see how powerful the future intent in the now is. Take the scale of time away, and you measure each individual experience as what it gave you in the moment of now.
Yeah, that's one very good way of looking at it. I mean, your future intent and what you actually do are not necessarily the same things.
Exactly. You are more than you've heard, read, or studied. How much have you known that your whole life? I think if you break that down, you are more than you've heard, read, or studied. You've known that since you were a kid.
Yes.
But we forget that we are sometimes just what we've heard, read, or studied when we don't put our authentic self behind listening or observing or doing our proper actions.
I guess it's just so easy to feel lost and overwhelmed.
Right.
To lose focus. I mean, it just, you get up, you walk outside, 3 people talk to you, and then suddenly you've lost all your focus on what you're going to do today, what your intent was for that day, this week, and then you know that you're missing something, and you feel like you're always getting not left behind, but you're always behind. So your future intent, in a way, is not getting fulfilled because you're just distracted by all this stuff.
And that's because of monodirectionalism, something that you learned from your mother and father and their mother and father. The stiff British upper lip, that's the same kind of metaphor to express for it. We have to let ourselves be limitless. Okay? And there are habit patterns that we have learned and ingrained into ourselves or have been imprinted by others that keep rational impotence a process within you.
So it's almost a learned behavior.
It is a learned behavior. And it has many scales to that learned behavior.
Just coming back to what we talked about last week about the habits.
That's right. Healing those habits. That's where you can identify in a moment when a habit is happening.
Mm.
One of those ways to observe is when you're driving. Is there ever an emotional response from somebody coming too close to you? Okay? Tailgating you, cutting you off.
No emotional response. I can't control my hand.
Exactly. Always that finger comes up. Why?
An independent hand.
Sovereign free will finger.
Although I tell you, having been in America now, I have to learn to adjust more and be more tolerant to things like that because here, half the people seem to carry guns, which I've never experienced before. So you're like, ooh, I'm very upset about that person doing that and nearly riding me off the road, but don't react. They might have a gun.
They might have a gun, exactly.
Yes, I keep seeing this on the news. Don't react.
Okay. Another way to see your habit patterns in process is when you're trying to be around friends and you see yourself not talking. And inside yourself, well, I wanted to say this, but you're not actually saying anything. You're sitting like a church mouse, sitting in the corner, not saying anything. That's where that program of shyness is taken over, or program of I don't know how to connect to people is taken over, or where the negative programming of being a hermit has taken over. So many people I meet become spiritually sensitive, and when they become in public places, their hermit energy really rears its ugly head.
Yes, I have encountered that a lot too, I have to say. And a lot of it, to me, also is not only the hermit energy, but I don't think what I have to say is worthy.
That's part of it, but most people justify being a hermit. I can't be around people because I'm too psychically sensitive.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Yeah.
So when we're trying to battle those tendencies, those are the tough ones. But just being aware that they're there is where you can take conscious application of the sacred and say, I don't have to tackle the hard ones immediately. Let me tackle some of the easier ones first and give myself victories. Okay? That's like just going out to the mall and walking through a crowd of people, never talking to anyone, going back into your car and going, I did it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then begin to dose yourself and say, I don't have to be super sensitive. I can interact with this matrix in the world because there's elemental energy and spiritual connections that I'm looking for. I just have to be the one that declares the rules as I'm moving through these reality bubbles.
Yes, and also learning to be more grounded and have an aura of self-protection, like an armor.
Exactly.
Armor, almost.
Exactly. Or a big reflecting mirror that is around you. One of the little techniques I tell people that are going from agoraphobia or coming out of the hermit stage is actually go into a mall and find the food court and just sit there and eat a meal. Okay? Sip on a cup of coffee and just let yourself people watch for a little bit and keep yourself separated as the neutral observer. Okay? Let that people watching process, which is innate into your body because you've done it billions of times in other lifetimes. Okay? Let yourself go through that process of being there. And then you can imagine like a disco ball around yourself. Okay? Thousands and thousands of little mirrors reflecting every single projection at you back to the person that created in sacred neutral expression. So it does not change you and does not harm them.
That's very good advice. Because you also have the safety of just being in your own little bubble.
Exactly. With that disco ball. If you want to get more advanced, you put a big disco ball around your anything from your heart below is one disco ball, and anything from your heart above is another disco ball, even bigger one. That means anything that's infrared at the heart level and below, that's just a common entity, has no ability to even observe you, and anything that's an observing non-physical entity can't observe you either, because everything that it's trying to do to entangle with you is reflected back to them with non-entangling energy. You're saying to the quantum and the quanta, I am not entangling my consciousness with you in any way, shape, or form. It is only your consciousness energy that's brought back to you through the laws of balance. Because I am my own sovereign being and do not take on the energy you're projecting to me.
Like that, laws of balance. That's good. It's always a good thing to keep in the back of your mind, isn't it? Because there are. Yeah.
There are many laws to the universe. Law of reaction. You do this, something will happen in response to that. It may not be equal or opposite either.
Or desired.
Exactly. And accidentally you answer your cell phone in the car and a cop pulls you over.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
When we live the separation of densities daily and we don't make it a recreational process, we make it a sacred process by observing the different layers we're letting go of and saying, this was a good layer and I need to be more aware of it. This was a very negative layer and I need to make sure that I don't allow it back in.
Yes, even just recognizing it is quite important so that you can make sure that you don't allow it back in.
Exactly. And then that time of self-observance can take a while. It's not just snap your fingers and psychic surgery is done and that layer doesn't come back because that habit pattern, it could be ancient inside yourself, decades old. Yeah. And it requires that self-nourishing and self-reliance process to go into the reflection of what it is, create the unlimited space, and begin to deprogram it by going through the rites of passage, by observing that particular habit pattern. All right, everybody, that is our break, and when we'll be back on the top of the hour, we will be taking calls. All right, everybody, we'll be right back.
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listeners-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back, everyone, to our second hour. We are going to be taking phone calls. So if those of you that would like to call in, they can call 347-688-2902, and we will get to your calls. We are limiting everyone to one question, and we'd like for you to ask questions about healing. So we want to remind everyone that Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com is a listener-supported station. So please stop on by that site support button. They have a very incredible special going on right now. For those that do a $50 donation, you will get a 1-ounce silver bar as long as you put in your address in the donations part. And this only applies to people that are in the U.S., so sorry about that. For those that do a $75 donation, you guys will get a Revolution Radio ball cap, which is really, really cool thing. And remember, this is listener-supported, non-commercial terrestrial radio. So stop on by that site support button. All right, Kathy, we are going to take our first caller. 9928, are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, and your name and where you're calling from?
This is Lisa from Flagstaff.
Lisa from Flagstaff.
Arizona.
There you go. What kind of questions do you want to ask?
I just want to say, hello, Andrew. I have been listening to you for a very long time, I think from 2011, and I'm really excited to talk to you right now. So hello, and so much love from my heart to yours.
Very, very cool. So what kind of question you want to ask?
I would like to ask about just actually reading the Akashic records and if you consider that the same thing as spiritual response technique, and if you could just maybe speak on
Good
a
question.
person, like me, who is really, really interested in learning how to do this, and how you might recommend me going about that.
Well, the process of learning the Akashic records, there are a lot of teachers out there that give a different perspective of how to do it. Once you get an understanding that the Akashic record is everywhere, What you can look up is something called the Schumann resonance. That is the background harmonic radiation, electromagnetic radiation field of this world. Each individual human being also creates their own individual Schumann resonance, which is your individual electromagnetic process of understanding who you are as a physical manifest being. Okay. We need everyone to mute their calls, please. Okay.
Okay.
So that process of the Akashic records is understanding that it works at an individual scale. And the individual scale is your perception of what the neutral observer is. So information cannot change you. If it changes you, you are not actually reading the Akashic record. That makes you the facilitator of an expression. When one is trying to learn the Akashic records in the beginning, they oftentimes try to do their own Akashic record. That is actually the hardest process to do, is to observe yourself through the perspective of the planet. Okay? Remember, the Akashic record is a recording of every sentient being's individual experience from the perspective of the planet. When we understand that scale in which you are beginning to function, very trivial questions fall away very fast. There are different things that you have to understand. You cannot make something instant gratification based, because there's a scale of understanding. Like when people ask me a question, they think their question is so simple, but there's an explanation that goes to the answer so that the answer doesn't produce more questions. Okay? So when it comes to other techniques, well, when one looks at their spiritual reflection, that's one process. When one looks at the spiritual reflection of another being's in another perspective that's sharing infinite space around you, you go to the bigger scale and the bigger size. So the skill set that I built up was looking at the potential of the being that's at me. So when I'm doing an Akashic record scenario, I'm looking at the total potential of that being, past, present, and future. And I'll look for spiritual contracts that limit it as an expression of potential. And from there, it's a matter of separating what is a hierarchical light process or a hierarchical dark process or a non-hierarchical observance process, meaning there's just information that has changed the being so much it's gone into extreme polarity. There is another frequency, a counter frequency of that, which will change the changed person inside and bring them back to a neutral observing polarity. And that's the next process of reading the Akashic record and then being responsible with the infinite, limitless information that has the potential to change any being.
Wow. Thank you.
It's responsibility. When you are ready for the responsibility, you have already earned it. Okay?
Okay.
Teach yourself to look at things on scales and not label one thing as one or another, because sometimes labeling it changes your perception of the information. So recording yourself, whether it's the written word on paper or typed word or using your own cell phone to record yourself, what you can do is you have one little thing that plays the question and poses it to you. So you are the live being posing a live question. A past part of yourself is entering your ancient present now and giving yourself a stated question. I would like to observe the Akashic record of a state park. And then you would go into that state park or begin to observe it through pictures or whatever and begin to see what forms of information come through your filters. And then an understanding that the filters can have perception, deception processes within it. So each is a neutral look at the process in which you are observing information. And once the information is observed and it's understood and it creates an experience that doesn't change you, it is still an experience that can be called upon in photonic manifest memory now. That is exactly what I do when I'm manifesting the Akashic Records live. It is an experience that doesn't change the overall me, but it's still the experience of expressing what it is that I've observed without attaching to it.
Am I allowed a follow-up question?
Sure.
How do you remove yourself from all of that. So I know you're sort of talking about that, but how do you really, how would a person, really make sure they are being neutral, and when they get information that might feel toxic or sad?
Good question. And I want to bring Kathy in here because it is all about perspective training to know if your discernment is right on or needs to be retuned.
I think a lot of it is about your own personal grounding. I mean, I look at your energy and I see that you're a very vibrant being, but you're very chaotic in many ways. The energy around you is chaotic. It's like you're accessing too much information. For me, I'd look at you and say you really need to focus more on your grounding, do that in your meditation, do that, on your everyday life, walk barefoot in the grass, whatever it is for you that you find grounding. Do that on a more daily basis and more frequently. Because when you are more grounded, you will find that it's easier to see things in clarity, and you won't be as sort of confused and have so much chaos tempting you with ideas.
Something else you can do as a discernment processing, well, this is where you have to give yourself some form of puzzle. Okay? And sometimes it can come in the form of creating your own parable of yourself. I met a bad boyfriend when I was 18. I met a second bad boyfriend when I was 22. I now have a relationship that has none of those bad boyfriend reflections. Okay? Those are the different parables that you can do so that you can bring up the discernments from each teaching scenario. Okay? Each phase of your life is a teaching scenario. And when we allow ourselves to fall back on other times of innocent times, we can regain that perspective and make it a part of the future now. That is the bigger process of discernment training. Knowing when to use the great victories of your life so that that energy is present during a process that may be tough to understand, or you're getting communications that you just don't know are real. That is the next phase of crossing the precipice of life. Your internal dialogues versus the external dialogues that are projected at you that seem internal. Understanding that spiritual voice does come at you in directions. This is why the four directions of this medicine wheel are so vitally important. The east is illumination and clarity. So if a voice is coming at you from your right, it is coming through that direction. The left is your dream time. The west, the north is in front of you by your heart. So all of those directional expressions, as well as the above, below, and within, give you the gyroscope of self-perception and layers of self-deception. And this is discernment training, really giving yourself a chance to chart your personality, see where the active programs are, such as overeating, undereating, not drinking enough water, not having enough sovereign control of myself when I'm at work and people are just dumping junk upon me and I'm just being the meek little person, knowing about those and then giving a little ounce of energy to them every week so that your individual power increases to the point where illumination and clarity and discernment are one and the same thing. That you know in your heart of the hearts that the truth of that voice, of that message that's coming into yourself or coming out of yourself, because it isn't changing you, it is empowering the I am now you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next caller. So the next caller is 561. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, your name and where you're calling
from? My name is Patty, and I'm calling from South Florida. Hello, Andrew and Kathy. Thank you for taking my call.
You are so welcome. What kind of questions did you want to ask?
Okay. Well, I have, yes, it has to do with what I do every day. I'm trying to make this as concise as possible, so forgive me for my hesitation. I run a little cafe which has a sort of healing vibration to it, and some of it has to do with this magnificent tree outside my kitchen door, and I also think that it has to do with that I have come to a place where I've lived before, and I have a lot of company of my own ancestors who also occupy the space with me. So the food that I prepare here is very, very healing to people, and it has been for a while. I've been looking at ways of exploring. I've been wanting to explore ways to expand the healing capacity of my food, and have been thinking about the use of spices from different parts of the world. And my idea is that if I can create soups, for instance, with different spices from around the world, will the food have the capacity to, say, help open up DNA memory for people's
Beautiful question. Beautiful question.
You know where I'm going with
yes,
it.
yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
So that's
yes.
what I get.
The answer is yes, it does. And then the next part to your question is knowing a spice as a person that's a chef, and then knowing the spice as a person that's a informed, literate chef, one who says, all right, I want to know what a pepper tree looks like. Where do peppercorns come from? Maybe I need to go and get one or grow one myself just so I can feel its essence as a medicine teacher.
Very good,
Okay?
yeah.
Just as the cannabis plant can be used to cure cancer, things like pepper, oregano, and all of the other spices can do the same thing, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And believe it is the key, or not is the key. When you have the original plant as the message teacher, like raising it, or the tree, or you go out and visit it, or whatever it is that you do, that you've got some form of connection to it, you can then call upon the ancestors of that individual plant that's going to be in your spice. Even if it's a spice that's coming from somewhere else, you've connected to the spirit messenger, the spirit soul family of that plant, and begin to work with it on a much bigger scale. And there's, once again, where your out loud words that's done during the preparation process that honors the ancestors in the co-creational healing soup that you're making.
Yeah.
So, Kathy, I want to bring your perspective here on the Asian spiced soups.
Yeah. Oh, when you were talking, I was just seeing all this stuff. It's great. I agree with Andrew. I think it's a great idea. I think it will be well received. Where your tree is it possible to add something that has running water near it?
Yes. Are you talking about like a water feature?
Yeah.
Like a fountain?
Yeah. Anything with running water, a fountain, a little, ornament with the running water with the ball that rolls, anything that you have a water flow.
Yes, I think I can do that. I think I can make space for that.
Oh, good, because I think that you will find that really helps in terms of an energetic level, bring you more inspiration, more customers, more abundance.
Do people
Wonderful.
Do people sit under the tree?
Yes. People do sit under the tree. I do have some seating under the tree, which I would like to expand. The tree actually leans over my cafe, and in particular, its branches lean way old. It's very old. It's about 200 years old. It's a mango tree, and it leans over my kitchen in particular.
Okay, so I'm connected to the tree and its acacic expression. There have been restaurants there in all different forms, barbecues there done for hundreds of years. So it is very, very happy that you're there with every single person that you can bring there. I think there are other things that you can do that can add a much higher resonant for the tree. Regularly burning sage for the tree. Just as if you would sage a person, you sage the base of the tree, because people do imprint some of their energy. And this tree, like many other perspective spirits, sometimes takes on too much. And you may notice color changes in certain areas as certain groups of people come in, or big knots that come into certain branches, because it's taking on the density of other beings.
Okay.
So what you can also do is give it a healing soup for yourself. You go, I'm going to make this soup just for this tree, and after it's nice and cooled and congealed, I'll go and pour it on the roots of the tree. Okay?
Wonderful.
You are my buddy in this healing process, friend tree. What can I give you in this soup as the ancient grandmother I am now?
Yeah.
I'm also seeing
Wonderful.
a
I
lot
do
of
say.
animals around there. Are you a pet friendly place?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I see a lot of small animals around. Are you a pet friendly place?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Very much so.
Right,
There-
because I would even suggest if you could do little things for animals, because I see it's very popular with little animals.
Put
Are
out
you talking
bowls.
about the animals that live in the tree, or just the animals that come with customers, or
Customers.
all of it?
Customers, I would imagine, yeah.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Okay,
But
so
even if it's like a specialty doggy treat with some little herb in it or
hmm
whatever,
Yeah.
but I see that having these little animals around you is also very lucky in attracting things, and it will only help you grow.
very good. Yes, I would love to do that.
All right, so about your original questions, the soup. So when it comes to the spice, like I've said before, you could also do a bigger form of what I call empowering the healer's tools. There
Okay.
are people that massage people that they empower their oil, their tuning forks, etc. As a chef,
Cool.
you come to your kitchen every day and you maybe become a little cognitive unaware of all of the power of the spices. So just as if they were each bottle of spice was a different crystal, take them out into the sunlight as a big batch of them and spend an hour with them and empower all of the individual bottles, even if you know you're going to refill them and refill them and refill them. Those are going to be your little, so every time you touch it, it is going to remind you of the teachings that you've shared with it yourself. What I recommend to the spiritual chefs that call me, and I get quite a few of them, is those are your alchemical bottles. Just like the great alchemist of the old, and food is where the system of domination and control still allows unlimited magic.
Right.
And it's the only thing that allows unlimited magic in this world.
Right. So we can really make a lot of headway in this area
Correct.
in terms of healing without too much interference from the forces of domination and control.
Exactly. Your only thing is the exchange of dollar value for food.
Right. Exactly.
Okay? That's what you're looking for your co-creation. And people, whether they're in the money curse or not, doesn't matter. They're still going to come to that expression because of the signature frequency you're co-creating with every being that's there, including the trees and all the other animals that come. It is, in a sense, making it a sacred watering hole.
Right.
Okay? That's where all the animals, including the predators, say, we won't hunt each other here.
Exactly. It's so funny because my cafe is called Mother Earth Sanctuary.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
So it's kind of, me saying that it's a sanctuary, it just kind of expands. It's not just a sanctuary for the humans, but also for the animals. And everybody is kind of it's that zone. It's that sanctuary zone. So very nice.
Okay. You will also have people that want to do music and song under the tree too. Very good.
Yes. It's people love to come to the cafe to write their songs, maybe play a song under, the song they're working on. A lot of creative people around here.
Yeah. All right. So we got to move on to the next caller.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Yep. 832. Yep. 832. You're the next caller.
Yes. Hi. Is that me?
Yep. 832. What's your name and where you're calling from?
Oh, yes. My name is David, and Kathy and Andrew. First off, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much
calling.
well, thank you so much for everything you do. When I first found you and saw the Galactic Akashic Records on Buzzsaw, I believe it was too, and it really changed me and definitely sent me on a new path.
Very cool. So what kind of questions do you want to ask?
Well, in reality, I was listening to the other callers, and kind of changed, but I came right back to something, and I have memories of when I was born, and I was a cesarean when I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and that just stuck with me. And there was an inkling that perhaps I was placed in the wrong DNA skin suit for some purpose. But either way, I think that in the end it kind of worked out good for me. I learned so much just from having been in my family, and likewise throughout everything. And I guess my question, if there is one, there is really none. I guess I just wanted to say thank you.
I got something for you. I have met in my sessions a lot of people that have strangling issues, and when you come in with the birth cord wrapped around your neck, it is saying from the moment of first inception you're going to be dealing with that as ancestral karma. So it would be very, very good for you to go and have someone do a past life regression, and where you deal with strangling questions from the birth. So there's a little revocation that I can help you with too that can really give you some relief. So just kind of repeat after me as I talk. I, in the ever-present moment of now,
I, in the ever-present moment of now,
choose to acknowledge a trauma from my birth.
Choose to acknowledge a trauma from my birth.
In which my umbilical cord, that which nurtured me from my mother,
where my umbilical cord, that which nurtured me from my mother,
became wrapped around my neck.
Became wrapped around my neck.
At the moment of my birth canal.
At the moment of my birth canal.
I now take this time.
I now take this time.
As the ancient future now.
As the ancient future now.
Incarnate being.
Incarnate being.
To go back to myself.
To go back to myself.
And use my hands.
And use my hands.
In perfect love.
In perfect love.
To unwrap the tool of love.
To unwrap the tool of love.
That is the umbilical cord.
That is the umbilical cord.
I shall not be strangled for love.
I shall not be strangled for love.
I shall be a being of love.
I shall be a being of love.
And just visualize yourself taking the umbilical cord, unwrapping it from your neck, and giving yourself a perfect birth. Huge amounts of energy coming off of your neck.
Yeah.
Let it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really important that you go and have a past life regression. And you can connect to Tanachek, Galactic Historian, and he can set you up with Debbie. You are going to discover that you have dozens and dozens and dozens of lifetimes where you were strangled. And it's going to be a huge weight off your shoulders realizing that it's just psychic karma from other versions of yourself. And you can let this all go and have a free life this lifetime, not having your voice restricted ever again.
Thank you so much.
All right, brother.
Thank
you
you.
take it easy. Have a good day.
Enjoy your free life.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah, enjoy your
Thank
free
you.
life.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we're going to move on to the next caller, 518. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, where are you calling from? Your name, too?
And my name is Alexandra, and I'm from New York.
Okay. So what is the question you want to ask?
My question has to do with how to heal issues with communication. Or the feeling that this pattern I have of being cut off, being left out, and I have a good example, even with you, I guess, because if you remember my voice, I translated some. I did some transcriptions for you of some of your talks and all, and then something happened, and I was cut off. I could never communicate with your group again, and this is nothing new because this has happened with so many people in so many different levels that I just saw it as. But of course, this is what always happens, and I find that I don't. Therefore, I don't really communicate with people. I just give up, and that damages my relationships. I don't know. Well, of course, I've had thyroid disease and all of that, but it's like how to bridge that gap so that I am actually able to communicate properly and bridge the gaps between my relationships and my issues with communication, and not always feel like I'm going to be cut off and left behind and just ignored.
I understand. Kathy is a communication expert. I want to bring her in here for the first perspective, and then I'll give you my perspective of what's going on with being cut off.
Okay.
When I look at your energy, to me, it's like you have, I agree to a degree that you have a lot of blockages around you. It's almost like you've put up these defense mechanisms that you think will protect you. But the problem with putting up mechanisms like this is that you yourself cannot hurdle over them as well.
Yeah.
So it's more about having a more user-friendly protection blockade, let's call it, for want of a lack of a better word. One of the things that I'd like you to do is, probably not today, but sometime this week or this weekend, just sit yourself down very quietly and still your mind. And when you're in those still moments, have a look at what you consider the threats to you are. And by that, it can be as normal or as extreme. It's whatever comes to your head. Whether it's your fear is anger, disgust, busyness, a tiger eating you, whatever it is. And I would imagine you'd probably have at least 5 or 6 big things that you're fearful about, whether it's rational or irrational. It just doesn't really matter. But
Right.
when you can look at them and you can recognize them, you're already halfway there, because the fact that you can recognize them means that you can deal with them. So when you do see them, it's like when you look at something, the minute you look at it straight in the eyes, it no longer has the same power to hold over you. So once you can recognize them, then you must, in your own mind, dispel these things. Whether they come back again or not is a different issue. But at that moment, when you see them for what they are, in your mind, dismiss them, dispel them, however it is that you feel comfortable with. And once you have done that, I then want you to start thinking about how you can create a more positive realm of protection around yourself so that you can deal better with the world, with people, with communication, even if it's by email, it doesn't matter. It's all contact with other people or other things. And I think one of the things that you might find very helpful is to use one of Andrew's sacred ceremonial fires would probably really help you start this process. Would you agree with that, Andrew?
Exactly. Because there you'll discover that there's a inbred, imprinted process in you of being cut off, which comes directly from your father. Do you know a lot about your father?
Oh my God, I think I do.
Do you know what he did for a living and what his main job was?
My father was a Catholic priest who was actually not ordained into church because he was cut off.
There you go. Okay, because he was cut off. And you came in with that spiritual contract already, and your father amplified it 100-fold.
Oh my gosh.
This is where you have to begin to understand you can still have all the love from your father. There are just certain lessons he's supposed to not teach you, like being cut off.
I guess that makes sense. He got cut off from the Catholic Church just before being ordained because he decided he was going to not comply.
Yeah, he was going to marry
with
and have children.
well, no, he decided to do that after he was kicked out of church. But he was complaining about the way in which the missionaries and all the priests and everyone was living in such luxury when they sent all of the other ones down to the slums in Vietnam and Burma and all of that. So I guess that's the pattern with me also. I don't want to speak out, and I don't want to create much trouble because I don't want to be put on the spot and left out the door. And,
this is where you've got to create your own thing, where the only thing that could cut you off is yourself. Okay? Just like Kathy was saying, all of the tools that she said, you are absolutely on spot, right there for you to do. The other layers that are there is understanding the spiritual teaching process that your father as well as your mother had. Now, would you say that your mother was somewhat of a kept woman?
No.
No? Okay. And do you reflect your mother's outgoingness?
Do you mean, is my mother an outgoing person?
No. Are you an outgoing person?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. That is the other habit pattern you've gained from your mother that is continuing this disconnection process. There is something that is an ingrained habit pattern that your mother taught you about judging certain people. Do you understand the subtle layers of judgment that we can learn from our parents?
Yes, I'm starting to see them now, but I don't see how that is affecting. I don't see the big picture of that with what you're stating.
It's in combination with your father being cut off. While your father was being cut off, your mother had to have an equal and opposite energy in her life so that she wasn't cut off. So she created a persona for herself so that, the relationship with the father, the being cut off, et cetera, all the drama that had to be done, she lived via a persona and not her authentic self.
Right. I see. Yeah,
Okay?
that makes perfect.
And you
That
have
makes
a
perfect
very
sense.
subtle second persona, not another personality, just a face or a mask that goes on when you're in public because your mother taught you that.
Yeah.
So for you, it's about just understanding you are your own self-expression. You are your own painted face. And this might be a ritual for you to regularly do where you can grab some watercolors and make it a fun ceremonial process of coloring your face with watercolors. It will not hurt your face, and it's a way to see the pure, authentic self-expression that you could give yourself.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Take off that mask
Yeah.
and put on your own.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Andrew.
welcome, darling.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All righty.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. All right. We're going to move on to our next caller. 204. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, your name and where you're calling from?
Sharon. I'm calling from Winnipeg.
Sharon from Winnipeg. What kind of questions you want to ask?
It's to do with doing work on the chakras and on the energy meridians. I do both, and I'm at a loss how to work the two together. I know that they meet and they interact. What I was wondering if you could describe or explain a way to meld those two systems so that the energy from above blends perfectly with the energy in the body for a more complete healing.
Okay. That comes to understanding that there's two stages to the healer who's the facilitator. You're the facilitator to the meridians, and then you're the facilitator to the chakras. And those are two different scales. The meridians are the ones that treat the individual organs that present the chi flow, the energy flow, and the natural patterns. The chakras are what imprint emotional distress or emotional presence in good energies into the meridian system. So when you want to go to treat a chakra, you are treating the underlying program that is altering a meridian. So you are facilitating a chakra or you are facilitating a meridian. And then you can bridge the two where you facilitate the meridian that is very close to a chakra so that the meridian can come into balance with the chakra. Okay? This is where we create bridges. This is where learning multiple forms of techniques give you that bridging technique. One of Kathy's things that she had done, and she had worked on people in what's called Watsu, which is a water treatment. Kathy, you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, it was is a very amazing form of healing. It's taking someone into a pool of water. So, like if you were standing up, the water would be up to your armpits, that kind of deep. And you are holding someone and you are moving them, guiding them while supporting them in water. And you're also doing shiatsu meridian presses on them as well. And that is an incredibly powerful form of healing. And one of the things I did notice about it is after you go through a Watsu or even a Vasudhansan treatment, your chakras are very, very much in line with all your body and your meridians. And it's actually a very, very soothing form of healing too, although it's not in the traditional sense of being on land. But that might be something that you could look up and see if you were interested to pursue something like that.
Is there a method to sort of do that yourself? Is there something you can do to the water, or even do it in a tub if you can get a tub full enough of water? Is there some way you could activate or treat the water or do something with it so that you could sort of do that yourself?
Yes.
I do most of my stuff through visualizing and
prayer. But when you're asking the specific question about bridging between meridians and chakras, you need some form of medium so the facilitator does not take on the negative imprinting of the sympathetic, parasympathetic body, which is one layer, and then the other layer, which is the meridian layer, and then there's your chakra layer, which has the more dominant side of your negative traits being dealt with in psychic surgery. Meridians and point touching change the pattern so there's no detours in it. But when you go at the chakra level and you're treating the chakra and meridian simultaneously, you need some form of medium where the water can begin to act as the greatest functionary tool for the facilitator who's healing. If you're in a scenario where you're doing most of your treatments remotely, bathtub. If it's a big bath and really not a small bath, you're good. As well as a running shower can be done too. You've got your water heater. You can do a ceremonial ritual over that where you empower the 80 gallons of that water heater so that it's all coming through. And then when it comes into the bathtub, you empower it again with various contract revocations and invocations. So when you are sitting in the water and let's say you're treating yourself, you are making sure that the bridging process, the extra facilitation is the empowered elemental water. Because sometimes if you're healing yourself and you're facilitating your own healing, you need that extra little hand on the shoulder to remind you to let go to the water, to give it visual process of coloring the water, or you finding stuff coming out of your tailbone, or your skin begins to secrete an oil that you can see on the surface of the water. Mm-hmm. That's when you're getting that bridging level between chakras and meridians.
Something like shungite or tourmaline or...
crystals are another medium in which you can do the same thing. Shungite, water, bottles of water or in the water. I've done many, many scenarios where they converted the 4-man hot tubs and they've got thousands of crystals inside there. Thousands, just say that. And it's, again, a unique healing scenario because you're bringing many mediums together and you are assisting the facilitator doing the healing. Because every time it's not the person, the healer, doing the healing. It's the person allowing it to happen. Mm-hmm.
Another thing you might want to consider is the use of the Australian bushflower essences. I mean, typically you do take them under the tongue, but I have heard of a few people putting it in water in their bathtub and saying it makes a big difference with them feeling realigned.
So you don't see this doing this without a healer involved, sort of doing it yourself?
No, you can. Like I said, you can empower the water to do that.
Yes.
So the water's the healer.
And the bath water that you were asking about, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Australian bush flower essences, there's a huge range of it. You can look it up on the internet, and they even will tell you a little summary of what it is that each one is specializes in, so you could choose your own if you're doing it all for yourself. Feel which one you're drawn to, and they even have pictures next to them so you can see.
Okay. Can I ask the question a slightly different way?
Sure.
If I visualize the energy running through the meridians, the correct colors interacting with Earth and greater self, and I visualize the meridians, how can I visualize linking the two energy systems together? How
in your
do the
crown
meridians...
chakra.
Sorry?
In your crown, it'll be in your crown chakra that you do that. So, see, the key is to understand, are you facilitating a healing for yourself, or are you doing it for someone else? When we are working at that level where we're trying to connect Earth and the chakra systems and all that together, it's all going to be done in the crown chakra. And think of it like a whole bunch of wires, like the old telephone system, that all get plugged into the right position. You know, and your higher self is that telephone operator from the 1920s that was plugging you in before there were telephone numbers. Okay? So that's where the visualization, how powerful you can visualize and then recreate that mental visualization above your head in the position of your crown chakra. This is where image layering creates the answer to your question. It is through those patterns and belief of those patterns that create the direct connection to the source patterning you're imprinting into that crown chakra area.
Wonderful. Okay.
And you can have incredible experiences where giant flows of what this like milky, gluey energy is coming down your crown chakra and filling up your body. That is the pure essence of your higher self when you are doing that, because you figured out how to create direct manifestation into your spinal fluid column. And that's the key to high crown chakra visualization with high levels of protection, so that your spinal fluid is empowered with the limitless energy to create the synaptic patterns of resonance with that level of healing and facilitation.
Wonderful. I think that's the missing link. I couldn't figure. I didn't want to do something wrong, and I couldn't figure out what to do.
Thanks for asking the question another way, because again, it's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Alrighty, we're going to move on to the next caller. Thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you.
All right. 914, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, what's your name and where you're calling from?
Oh, my God. Rudy from Yonkers in New York.
Rudy, Yonkers, New York. What kind of question do you want to ask?
A question that baffled me for a while. My mother said when I was born, they took me from her for a couple of days, and she didn't know where I was or what they were doing. And then they returned me to her, and she was baffled, she was upset, and they never told her what happened. So I'm kind of curious about that.
What year was that?
Let's see, February 15, 1951. At 11:57 p.m.
All right. That process of taking away a baby for many days was very, very common then, and it was part of a bigger medical study that they were doing. They harvested the umbilical cord, they harvested the placenta, and they did blood tests on you. Not uncommon back then. The fact that you were given back is really good, meaning that they sensed something in your blood that could have made you a potential of somebody not going back to their mother or some other child going back in place. Your mother is actually your mother, and that's going to answer your bigger question.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so, right, so thank you. I mean...
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What have you been doing the last couple of years? That's your special thing.
I feel I'm a humanitarian by nature, so I do a lot of research and I share it with people. I'm an Aquarian, And but I actually believe I shouldn't be here. What I've went through in my life, I really shouldn't be here.
I know. That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
You've got a story that needs to be told to the world, Guy.
Wow.
You made it. You got to realize you made it back to your mother at a time where you shouldn't. You have angel beings that are watching over you. And it's time for you to start acknowledging them so they can help facilitate a bigger healing for you so you can begin the process of telling your lifelong story to a bigger population of the world that's really going to relate to it. Really relate to you, the individual being who went through that individual story. I even got little tears in my eyes from your ancestral healers going, there's a potential, there's a potential, there's a potential.
So where do I go from here? I mean,
this is where I want to bring Kathy in. You know, Kathy and I often in our private sessions run into people with this incredible potential. And sometimes actualizing potential are just some really simple techniques that you can do.
I guess, how can I put this? I really want to know, what is it that you think interests you?
The truth?
Yes.
That's what interests me. You know, we're so surrounded by lies and deceit and misinformation. Sometimes I'm confused. I don't know which way to go. Sometimes I feel like I'm being attacked spiritually, psychically. And I live alone. I'm 64 years old now, so it's a little difficult.
See, that's everyone else's energy projecting at you that you're unable to achieve your potential.
Yeah, because I look at you and, you're so crowded. It's like you've got 100 visitors in your energy. That's why I'm asking, what is it that you think is your interest? Because it's difficult to see beyond all this stuff all around you. I don't know that you know what your interests are because you just have too much info, too much energy, just completely immersing all spare energy all around you. I think you really need to spend some time to dig deep about what it is that you find interesting, because you are too inundated by information about 10,000 different things that have no consequence in you and your everyday life. When you can find clarity just in your day-to-day, what interests you, the rest will fall into place much easier. Because you did mention that you like doing things that are humanitarian, and I can see that you're a very loving and giving person, but it's very difficult for you to even exercise any of this in a humanitarian way in any big form because you just get too distracted by other things. I mean, I look at your energy and I think you would be an excellent, what they call it, like a guide, almost a big brother kind of scenario for many, many kids that are losing their way. But you have to be more focused and find the interest in it to pursue something in a more regimented form to do something like that.
You know, that is so true. I did 25 years of clinical counseling with drug addicts and crack addicts down in Harlem.
See, I told you. That is you are going to connect to more people than you could ever possibly know from those stories.
I agree.
Wow.
Okay? You're going to change the world when you choose to be the force of change in yourself, to understand that each and every crackhead and drug person that you ever dealt with was a teacher. So when you decided to clear your frequency, you could teach the world about the common stereotypes and issues that you saw of what it takes to really change one person's life that was dealt with drugs.
And then sometimes you can make a difference in one person's life. That is the most amazing change that person will ever have in their life.
Exactly. All right, everyone, this is coming to the end of the show. If you want to go and sign up for the newsletter, please go to Andrew Bartz's, BARTZISGH.Kajabi, abi.com, and you can get our free ceremonial living teaching from that. Thanks a lot, everybody, and we will be back next Monday, and we will be doing call-ins again. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you. Stay well.
Bye.
Bye. God bless.